They felt in control. They made the call. They believed it was their decision. But it wasn't. You didn't argue. You didn't push. You didn't even offer a suggestion. You just shifted the emotional current. One pause, one glance, one sentence timed with precision. And suddenly, they arrived where you wanted them to go, thinking they got there on their own. That's not coincidence. That's emotional misdirection. In this video, you'll learn how to guide choices, not by force, but by feeling, so that when they move because it feels right, even if you wrote the script. Part 1. What is emotional misdirection? You don't need to change their mind. You just need to shift their emotional state. Because once the emotion shifts, the logic that follows belongs to you. Emotional misdirection is not persuasion. It's redirection, not of thought, but of feeling. And once the feeling changes, the thoughts rearrange themselves. To match it, they think they're being rational. They think they're choosing freely. But really, they're reacting to the environment you created. The brain doesn't decide by logic. It decides by emotional signal. Does this feel safe? Does this feel right? Does this feel familiar? Once those boxes are checked, the mind agrees. Not because it was convinced, but because it was led. You don't argue the idea. You engineer the state that makes them accept it. Instead of, here's why I'm right, you ask, how do I create the emotional frame where this feels true to them? Now, when the idea enters, there's no pushback, no resistance, no debate, because the resistance was turned off before the message arrived. You're not manipulating. You're redirecting momentum. The emotion is already moving. You don't block it. You don't fight it. You just guide it, slightly off course, until it lands where you want it all along. This is emotional misdirection, quiet, invisible, untraceable, but deadly precise. And once it's activated, they'll call it their idea, their decision, their truth. Part 2. Why rational arguments often fail. You think if you just explain clearly, they'll understand. If your logic is sharp enough, they'll agree. But that's not how minds work. Not really. Because people don't follow logic, they follow emotion. That feels like logic. The brain doesn't choose what's true. It chooses what feels safe. When someone hears an idea, they don't ask, is this factually accurate? They ask, does this threaten me? Does this make me feel exposed? Does this align with who I think I am? And if the answer is no, the defense system activates. It doesn't matter how logical you are. They're no longer listening. They're protecting. The smarter the argument, the stronger the recoil. When you argue hard, they don't feel impressed. They feel attacked. So instead of opening, they double down. Not because you're wrong, but because you made them feel small, wrong, inferior, pressured, and no one listens when their ego's on fire. Emotional safety precedes cognitive shift. If they don't feel respected, seen, in control, they won't take in what you say, even if they need to hear it. They'll reject truth just to protect identity. They'd rather be wrong and safe than right and exposed. And that's not a flaw. It's a feature of the human mind. This is why most influence fails. It's not that you're wrong, it's that you tried to enter through the front door. But the front door is guarded by ego, fear, pride, and self-image. The real entry is through feeling. Shift that first, and the mind opens on its own. From here on, you don't lead with argument. You lead with emotional positioning. Create the right state. Let them feel ownership. Then the idea slips in without friction, and once it lands, they defend it as their own. Part 3. 3 emotional redirect tactics. You don't overpower emotions. You don't block them. You don't argue against them. You redirect them. And once redirected, the entire decision path shifts without conflict. Tactic 1. Anchor, then shift. First, you validate. You don't fight the emotion. You anchor into it. You say, I get why that would make you feel that way. Now they feel seen. Defense drops. You've entered the system. Then you shift. And sometimes, what we feel most strongly isn't the full story. Subtle. No push. Just redirection. They're still feeling, but now in a new direction. Tactic 2. Disarm with vulnerability. When people expect resistance, give them none. Drop your tone, lower your energy. Show restraint. Say, I've made that same mistake too. Honestly, I used to think exactly like that. They expected debate. You gave them connection, and in that disarmed moment, their guard drops. Their emotions settle. Their logic opens. You're not pushing past ego. You're walking through the door they opened for you. Tactic 3. Reframe with empathy. You don't reframe ideas, you reframe feelings. Instead of saying, you're wrong, say, it makes total sense why you'd feel that. And maybe there's another way to look at it that still honors that feeling. Now you've made space for your perspective without invalidating theirs. That space equals invitation, not force. And when people feel invited, they move. Why these tactics work? Because none of them threaten. None of them demand change. None of them push logic onto emotion. They do something deeper. They guide. They soften. They redirect, without leaving fingerprints. From now on, don't push them to feel something else. Don't make them wrong for what they feel. Just shift the emotion. Until the behavior changes on its own, they won't remember what you said. They'll remember what they felt before they changed. Part 4. Let them name it, claim it, act on it. The most powerful idea is not the one you speak. It's the one they say first. Not because you told them, but because you designed the path. That made it inevitable. You don't feed the conclusion. You create the conditions for it to form. You don't say, this is the solution. You say, what do you think would feel right in that moment? You don't drop the answer. You drop the setup and let their emotional logic fill in the gap. When they name it, it becomes real. Psychology 101. People don't believe what they hear. They believe what they say. So if you say it, it's your idea. But if they say it, it's truth. And once they say it out loud, they commit, they justify, they defend. Because ownership activates identity. How to get there? Layered prompting. You lead them through emotional framing. Validate the feeling. Ask the right "what if?" Let silence do the rest. Example: you said this keeps happening. What do you think that pattern is trying to tell you? They pause, they search, they connect dots, and when they respond, it's not your idea anymore, it's theirs. The power of letting them claim it. When someone says, "I've realized I need to set boundaries," that hits harder than if you said, "You need to set boundaries." Because now they own it, they believe it, they're emotionally invested in it. And because it came from them, they'll act on it without resistance. You created the outcome without carrying the message. You didn't push, you didn't sell, you didn't label, you engineered the experience. That led them to say what needed to be said, and that is silent psychological authorship. Part 5. Misdirection without manipulation. There's a difference between manipulation and precision. You're not tricking, you're not lying, you're not forcing, you're designing a path they already want to walk. Manipulation hides intention. Misdirection shapes experience. Manipulation says, "How do I get them to do what I want?" Misdirection asks, "How do I help them want what actually serves them?" One hides, the other guides. One controls from fear, the other orients from awareness. The goal isn't submission, it's alignment. You're not here to win, you're here to create outcomes that feel internally congruent to the people moving into them. They don't feel used, they feel clear, they feel empowered, and they move because it feels right, not because you made it happen, even if you did. You don't force behavior. You create context. You shape the frame. You hold the space. You plant the feeling. Then step back and let them step forward on their own, because that's how you influence, without resistance, without guilt, and without backlash. Rule of strategic ethics. If the outcome benefits you, but also empowers them, you're not manipulating, you're leading, silently, precisely, correctly. Final C, TA. You didn't force the idea. You didn't fight the resistance. You didn't ask them to change. You just shaped how they felt before they decided. And once the emotion shifted, everything else followed. They thought it was their idea, their realization, their choice. But what they didn't see was the environment you created, the emotion you activated, the subtle space where change became easy. That's not manipulation. That's psychological precision. From now on, don't argue their mind, lead their feeling. Let them speak your truth on their terms, because when they name it, they'll claim it. And once they claim it, they'll act on it without ever looking back.